Good day. Munir Ajam here, and I will be recording this short video presentation with a couple of slides only, but with extensive discussion on the SUKAD CAMMP model, or the customizable and adaptable methodology for managing projects. If you've been following some of our videos and posts online, you know that this methodological approach can help you lead a project concept to closure. So this is not about managing a stage or a phase of the project, rather than it is managing the whole life cycle of a given project, regardless what type of project, in any industry, in any domain, regardless of size or complexity. You have probably seen this picture before, and this is the standard model. And when we say the standard model, that doesn't mean this is a fixed model. This is not something set in stone. As you can tell probably from the name, that this is a customizable and adaptable methodology for managing project, which means the standard model is only a starting point that you can use to tailor, to customize, to adopt a methodology or a method to fit the type of project you work on, that would be fit for purpose. This is, maybe we keep repeating this term, tailoring, fit for purpose, because a methodological approach in project management has to take account the project industry, the company, the size of the project, the complexity of the project, the type of the project, among many other factors, in order for us to manage it and lead it successfully. However, regardless what type of project, what I'm going to be presenting now is the thought process that you should go through, whether you work on a tiny project or a mega project. Of course, the difference would be, on a tiny project you might be on your own, on a mega project you might have a small army behind you. And as we go from a project, how do we lead a project? Let's talk about 5 major steps that we need to go through before we can start even working on development or delivery or implementation of the product. So let's say in any organization you have an idea for a new venture, a new business, a new software, a new organizational project management system, a warehouse, a petrochemical plant, a school, anything, a website. And if we are going to start, so we know in a way we have something in mind. The step we're going to go through here is, first we start with why, which is in the CAMMP model is addressed in the concept stage. Now we don't only answer why, there will be more, and I will be adding some of those comments a little bit later. But ideally, if we think about 5 steps, if we want to simplify the process of project management into 5 major steps, actually there will be more, but let's say through the initial stages of a project. First, we must start with why, which is the concept. Why are we doing it? Why do we want to do this project? Many organizations miss this part and miss the second part, which is it possible? You can have a great ideas, and they are probably have a strong business need. However, you might not have the resources to deliver those projects or to deliver that product you have in mind successfully. So we must go through a feasibility stage. If the project is feasible and management believe it's a priority, we go to the next step, which is what's required. Now we need to start asking some more questions. You know, when we start with why early, we just have an idea about something to produce, a dream, a vision, an idea. But now we need to start getting into requirements. What are the what's required? What are the technical requirements, the management requirement, the business requirement, the legal requirement, and anything else you have. Obviously, that's highly dependent on the product you want to produce and the stakeholders that are interested in this project. The 4th step is what I'm labeling here is how to lead it. So we know what we want, we believe it's feasible, now we have some requirement, then how to go from this point all the way to closure. And that's where we need to produce a project management plan. But before we can get to the project management plan, we need to think about some strategies. What's your delivery strategy? For example, are you going to use a sequential process with the product release at the end of the project at one shot, big bang? Or are you going to do it in iteration, that with every iteration that you enhance the product, or in increments? And then really at the end of the day, you would release the project over a period of time. You release the product of the project over a period of time instead of a big bang. So you'll have many small bangs. So that will be delivery strategy. Procurement strategy, you can have here best practices strategies. There are many strategies we can address at this fourth step, ultimately going to a project management plan. The next step is now it's time to how to develop it. And what we mean by how to develop it is that what's required, what are the details. Now notice we talked about requirement earlier, but that was more of a high level requirement, helicopter view. Now we need to get down to the street level. We need to get down to the detail. What's required, what are the steps, what need to be done. Obviously the name here in CAMMP is that we will produce in the definition stage what we call the project detail plan. If you're in real estate, that might be an architectural design. If you are in oil and gas, that might be preliminary engineering or front-end engineering design. If you are in any other industry, then maybe it's just detailed plan. With the detailed plan is that when we get the final details, and now we have enough information to be able to predict the final cost and schedule with relative accuracy, which means plus or minus 10% probably, or 5%. And that usually give enough confidence to organization to approve the project to go into the implementation phase or the delivery phase in CAMMP. Now you notice here there are 5 steps, and they could take days or weeks or months or even years, depending on the nature of the project. In general though, although this might take a long time, the cost spent here is minimal in terms of the total cost of the project, because most of the cost of the project is in what comes next. Now before we go into what goes next, let me go back and expand on each of these steps. First we start with the concept stage, or the why. And in CAMMP that include 3 major questions, which is, as you can see here, what is the product? What are you going to produce? And the product, in this case, I'm using the product generically. It could be a solution, it could be a service, whatever the case, which is what some references like PMBOK and ISO, they call it the output. I would rather here focus on the word product of the project. What is this project is going to produce at the end? Then why are we doing it? Obviously the why could start first, but in reality, why, which is the justification. Do we have a business need? Do we have a community need? Is there a social community need? Is there a government? Do we need to respond to some safety or market threats? Do we need to take on an opportunity of creating something or growing the business or releasing new product? So why usually depend on the nature of your organization. If you are for-profit organization, then most likely the why is to improve your revenue or reduce cost, basically adding value. If you are a government project or an NGO, usually your project is also adding value to the community. So in general, projects are about adding value. They are agent of change. Projects are agent of change that we use to help us realize benefit, that will help us add value. The value could be tangible in terms of commercial gain, or it could be a reduction of cost, which is again commercial, or it could be adding services to a community or as an NGO or non-profit or charitable organization. What I haven't said yet, the third question we said we have 3 questions: what, why. The third one is the strategic alignment. What we mean here is that every project, the organization that are mature, should do only projects that align to the organization's strategic objective. If I'm in the training business, selling falafel is obviously not a strategic objective. So That's the key question, and that is actually, those questions are submitted in a document we call a project brief, and they go through the first stage gate on the project. If you go back to the previous slide, you will see the gates there that are numbered. Now, once organization, senior, executive, management, or whoever have the power to decide to go through gate 1, then ideally what we believe they should appoint a sponsor or a project executive, depend what you'd like to call that person, or project owner or product owner, you name it, whatever you wish. And we also strongly recommend the appointment of a project manager. And the idea is now we need to go from the project brief and the concept to go to do a feasibility study. So the feasibility study in the CAMMP model includes 14 items. I'm not going to list them all here. You can refer to many videos we have produced on CAMMP. And then basically the key concept here: is it possible in the feasibility stage include analysis to determine if the organization is capable of delivering the product of the project successfully? Can we complete the work and produce the product successfully and realize benefit that we expect at this point in time? So obviously organization will not authorize project unless they are expecting benefit. Remember, benefit, going back to the concept we said before, could be tangible or could be community service. So we need to have some kind of anticipated benefit, and we need to believe, management need to believe, that we have the ability to do this project, deliver the product, and realize those anticipated benefits. If we have doubt on any of these points, we should reassess the project and whether this project should proceed or not. The third step we said, before I jump, I'm going ahead of myself. These two things here that we just discussed is what we call the discovery phase. Now let's go to step 3. And step 3 is the third stage, which is the requirement stage. And ideally, to stay brief here, this stage must start with the stakeholder expectation. We have to know who are the stakeholders for this project, direct and indirect, that are senior and working level. All the relevant stakeholders that are impacted or will impact the project. We need to start with their expectation. What do they envision? What do they expect to see when we are done? And we also use a tool here, we call it PBS, or product breakdown structure, that can help us break down the product into its component. And using the stakeholder expectation and the product breakdown structure plus some other analysis, we can produce a high-level requirement for the project. High-level requirement, because we don't have detail right now, we just have the condition. For example, we are dealing with a building. The building should be smart building. Or we are going to have to build a school. The school should be sustainable and comply with sustainability parameters in terms of environmental, society impact, all the other areas. Next, we go to the fourth level, which is the strategy stage I touched on earlier. And again, I will summarize here. The strategy stage includes finalizing the tailored project lifecycle, include strategies for product delivery, procurement, best practices, and other factors, leading to the project management plan, which would include an updated cost and schedule estimate for the project at this point in time. Finally, in this image so far, you notice there's still white on the right? So there will be more to come. The definition stage is critical since it provides the project detail plan, which we can use to update the feasibility parameter, gain final approval, funding to proceed to the delivery phase, and continue with the project. I know I just thread here. Obviously, you could read on your own as well, but this is basically, we touch on this. This is a critical stage. Because as we mentioned, the final approval happened at stage gate 5, which is at the end of the stage. These three green topics that we just discussed is what we call in the CAMMP model the development phase. Next, we, assuming of course the project is approved, because remember, at any one of these points the project could have been stopped. So let's say in this case management decide to approve the project, they will go seek the necessary funding, and they will go to the delivery phase. And the delivery phase have two things happening in parallel. The first thing is we implement the work. We are going to go start to do implementation of the work, and of course when we are done at the end we close. But hang on the close first. The next things we should be doing in parallel is if your project require end users, facilities, then there will be operation. It could be operation and maintenance. We use the term operation here to refer to anything that's going to happen after the project team hand over the project product to the end users or the operation management that will be running the facility or the new system. And therefore, and this is a topic that's often ignored in project management because usually the project people are not responsible for it, especially in facilities project. This is usually done by operation people, is the operational readiness and initial operation stages. So in parallel to implementation, while the team, let's say we're talking about building a museum, while the team is building the museum, you have engineering construction people doing the engineering design and then implementing and basically constructing the museum. We should have operation people working in parallel to get ready for operation, and that could include in terms of displays that will be presented in that museum, the writing, the marketing materials, the IT system, the recruitment, the hiring, the training of the personnel, that once we are ready to open, those people should be in place and they should be qualified and trained to do what's required of them. So notice the implement and close go beyond the arrow below it, because ideally we can start closure after we hand over, but we cannot finalize closure until we have final acceptance that will come from our customer, whether they are internal or external. The blue here you can read on your own is basically, this is the same concept that I just explained, is the idea of the 4 stages that exist in the delivery phase. Now, where is control? Well, many people, and I really cannot understand how many organizations and people and professionals, they include monitoring and control as a stage or a phase of the project. ISO, PMBOK, almost every good, reputable literature on project management shows that control, or what PMI call monitoring and controlling, is happening beginning to end. In other words, once that idea is submitted and maybe goes through gate 1, control start. Monitoring and control start, and will continue all the way to the end of the project until we formally close. In the CAMMP model, that definitely all the way to the end, because we have gate 9 to prove and to verify that the project is indeed closed after making sure that all the closing requirements have been fulfilled. So basically monitoring and control is happening throughout, is not something that happen as a stage within this life cycle. That's about it in terms of the CAMMP model. Obviously, if you like to read more, then there are many texts and ebooks that we have published on this. Our latest book that we have published by CRC Press in December 2017 is Project Management Beyond Waterfall and Agile, that did discuss this model in more detail. We have a series of video, about 14 videos on CAMMP, that definitely goes into much more detail than I just covered here, and they are for you to go and learn more about them. The series of videos I just mentioned, it's on the first link or URL I listed here, and then of course we would love to have you engage with us, share, learn, help us learn, share what our videos and material if you think they are of value to you and your friend and community. You can also engage with us on Twitter using the SUKAD group, or looking for SUKAD group if you can't remember this link. And of course on LinkedIn, I have a personal account as Munir Ajam, but the SUKAD, the link you see here is to see the SUKAD company page. Once again, thank you We appreciate your attention. Best regard.